they approved me. I don't know why. I've been working with the bank for a while, but they approved me for $17,500 loan. The next day, I cashed the entire thing out in 20s, put it all in a backpack, fly out that night to Los Angeles, wake up the next morning, and my stomach is like hurting because of the amount of risk I'm taking. I remember like not wanting to get out of bed, and it was just miserable.
Did it
Sometimes you
just
wake
hit
up
you
for
then?
videos. Yeah. Like when you like wake up and your reality is that's like 17,500 in cash that you don't have. And I'm about to go buy a couch with it that hopefully works out. And I
And
only
you
have like
don't
80,000
want the
subscribers.
couch. And the
Yeah, I
couch
don't want the
is,
couch.
no one wants the couch.
No, it's just a giant. I mean, where am I going to put it after I buy it? I have no clue. I literally have no clue what I'm doing.
What is up, everyone? This is episode 7, and today we are talking the business side of Eric Decker, aka Airrack. And so I'm not really sure where to begin with Airrack's story, but in January, he decides to quit his full-time job. And by full-time job, I mean the company he founded after dropping out of college. And this wedding videographer company, he scaled to a 6-figure business. But in January, he decides to quit it and become a YouTuber, become a content creator full-time. And he doesn't just do that. When he starts, he says, a year from now, I'm going to have 1 million subscribers. That is his goal. And a lot of people have big goals. I would love to have the #1 business podcast, but Eric went out there and did it. Now he has 1.1 million subscribers. I mean, he went from 0 to 1.1 million in a year. And anyone who knows YouTube, they know that that kind of stuff just doesn't happen. You don't go from 0 to 1.1 million subscribers in a year. That is something I've never really seen before. And I think the reason he was able to do it, and you hear it in this conversation, is just his drive. I mean, one story, he at one point takes out a $17,000 SBA loan, a small business loan. So he goes to a bank and says, this is my business that doesn't actually exist. Give me money for it. And then he uses that money to fund his video idea, to make this video idea happen. And it just perfectly encapsulates just who he is as a content creator and what made this conversation just so much fun. Before we get back into the episode, if you wouldn't mind rating, I heard 5 stars is the highest rating if you're on Apple. If you're on Spotify, please smash that subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, do all the things. All this stuff really, really matters in terms of getting the podcast out there, and it means a ton. Okay, no more from me. Let's get back into the episode. Do you want to know how dumb I am? I didn't know that your name was Eric and Airrack. I didn't put that together until last night when I was preparing for this, and I felt really stupid.
That's funny. No, a lot of people don't put it together at all. So it's like kudos to you. I get asked that question all the time. Why the name? But if you think about it, it makes sense. So I'm glad you got it. I didn't have to explain it myself.
So my first question is, I think you're legitimately, I don't know if there's something wrong with you, but I dug into like I've listened to a lot of the podcasts you've been on, and I've watched your videos, and I actually think you're like maybe insane.
Sure. Okay. All right. I would love to hear the thesis.
So I've never seen someone go 0 to 100 literally. So you started in January with what, 50 subs?
Yeah.
And now you're at what,
1.1 something.
1.1. So you call your shot with 50 subs.
Yeah.
And the videos you've put out in the last year are just, you have to be a tapped individual to be doing the video concepts you're doing. So you got sued by, you don't have to comment on this, Dan Blazarian.
Yeah.
You bought a $90,000 couch, then you jumped out of it from a helicopter. No,
big plane.
Helicopter? Big plane. I mean,
yeah.
What are some other big videos we did this year?
What else did we do this year? That's a good question. Snuck into the Dan Blazarian party, jumping out of the plane. I later traded that couch for an actual Mercedes-Benz, blew it up. It's hard to remember, man. It's a lot of chaos. It was a very, we went to Mr. Beast Island and claimed it as ours with like this lake boat. I was a nightmare. I mean, we
You
almost died.
delivered Uber Eats via
A
helicopter.
helicopter. That was fun. That was a good one. Yeah.
That was a good one because I ordered takeout legitimately every single day. So
Yeah.
if somebody came to me with a helicopter, I would
Yeah.
appreciate how long it takes me for my Uber Eats food to
Listen,
come.
I could put some words in for you. We might be able to make that happen.
Yeah. So what, first of all, what's the mindset to call this shot in
Yeah.
January? Why do you
When you
think?
say call the shot, you mean being like, all right, I'm gonna hit 1 million subscribers this year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of people say a lot of shit. I can
Yeah.
tell myself I'm going to have the #1 business podcast in the next year. Is it going to
Yeah.
happen? I don't know. I'm not built like
It
you.
could.
It could. But why do you think you were built like that to call your shot?
I don't know if you've ever been at a point in your life of like maybe like you can like think career specifically where you're like so miserable in whatever you're doing that you will literally do whatever it takes to do the thing that you've been like in the back of your mind wanting to do for a really long time. You know what I mean? And
Okay.
like
Yeah.
COVID hit a little bit later in the year, and that's when I like really went crazy and kicked it into the gear. But I was doing like sort of a production company before, and I was always watching YouTube. It was my form of TV as a kid, and I always wanted to be a YouTuber. And doing this production company was kind of my safe way of putting myself, sort of in the production space, but not taking
Right.
the risk of putting myself on camera. And I got sick of it, dude, after like 3-5 years, whatever it was, and was so miserable that it was like, all right, I'm 23 years old. I'm behind the curve on doing this YouTube thing. The only way for me to like catch up and be where I want to be in life is for me to get to 1 million subscribers this year. And I will literally do whatever it takes to not be doing this job anymore. So a lot of that comes out of like desperation. I think if you're desperate, you'll do almost anything.
You say you're desperate, but I've done my homework. So you drop out of college because traditional education is not for you, apparently. You drop out of
Ian's done his
college.
homework. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. So you
Yeah.
drop out of college and you're just like, okay, if I drop out of college, I need to start a 6-figure business,
Yeah.
which sounds like a Gary Vee quote. You go do
It does. It does. It does. I
like,
might have gotten that from Gary Vee.
are you the next Gary Vee? That's what people
No.
are asking.
Yeah.
So you drop out of college and then you say you're going to build this business and then you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you so miserable? Like a lot of people at that point, you're 21, 22 at the time. You built a 6-figure business. I mean, you're not a slave to the man. You're doing what you want to do. I don't get what's so miserable about that you said, I need to go all in on YouTube, start blowing up things.
I mean, dude, it was definitely a grind to build that business. And I was like ahead of my like age or whatever, having done that. But it felt like I was like that position felt like when guys get to they're like 40 and they've been doing the corporate job for a long time and they're making like $250,000 a year, but they're miserable still. And you come to realize that it's not all about the money. It's about why you're doing it and the passion behind it. I like went through that entire existential crisis at like 21 years old or something.
Did you take
And
mushrooms when you did this, or this was just
no,
all
no, I
natural?
wish it might have been more fun if I did take mushrooms, but it was just like not wanting to get out of bed every day because you're doing this thing that you're not even passionate about. You're realizing I had done like 90% of what I wanted to do, which was using cameras and making content and that stuff. But the last 10% was the passion piece, and I totally missed the mark. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm definitely like a psychopath. I would definitely say I enjoy work way too much. I'm really, really passionate about building things. It's all I want to do when I go to bed and wake up. You see that with building that production company and then doing YouTube. I mean, I would really be interested to get your take on this whole thing. But looking at YouTube, it's production company type of in like business, but there is absolutely no ceiling on it, which is really attractive to someone who is built to just love work, right? There is no point at which things cap off. It's just this giant exponential curve that goes to space, there's nothing stopping you from making $1 billion if you can figure it out. It's just a giant game that never ends.
Correct. The question is, the more you play that game, the stakes get higher and higher and higher. Yeah. And that's when things get weird. That's when you see creators push themselves where you get that burnout where, how do I one up the next video? How do I one up the next video? How do I one up the next video?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But at the same time, that's why it's so great, is because you make your rules, right?
Totally. And like the worst case scenario is you don't want up the next video and you still get 5 million views on a video. Like there's a certain point at which you hit where it's this very sustainable business that you've created beyond anything in the like physical goods world. It's a really interesting business model, you know, and I think that that's also super attractive.
It seems to me that you attack, whether it was the production company to this, very much with a business mindset where it's
Mhm.
obviously your passion, but you do have a formula and a way by which you're attacking the space that is different from other creators. And I think, to me, hearing you explain, I know you've told the story before, so I'm going to make you tell it again. The
Yeah, of
Couch
course.
Theory, Logan Paul story, just to me, and your use of thinking about the different leverage in that situation, what you had, what Logan had. If you could walk me through that.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, so the Couch series was basically a series of 6 or 7 videos where I went. Logan Paul posted his $90,000 couch that he had regrettably bought on
Saw
Craigslist.
that.
Did a swipe up on Instagram, was like, "Somebody, please, I'm begging you, buy this couch from me." Listed for $20,000 on Craigslist. I have like $5,000 to my name. So there's no way for me to get this. I think I had like 80,000 subscribers at the time, so I had built a little bit of momentum up to this. And I was like, this is perfect. Like, this is, nobody else is going to buy this couch. I'm going to buy this couch, and then I'm going to figure out what to do with it. Like, I don't know, but he's trying to sell this couch. We had a little bit of banter before. You can go back and watch. So anyway, long story short, I coax his assistant, Danny, into believing that I am a luxury furniture buyer. And I'm a middleman, and I'm putting this couch in one of my very high-end clients' house in Bel Air. Fly out to California. I didn't have the money. I got a brand to give me $15,000 max. It was a CPM deal, and I would make $5,000 max over the course of 3 videos. So I had to get 500,000 views to get my full $5,000 per video for 3 videos to make 15 grand, which wasn't even the full total back on the couch. But that was like my best bet. It took like a month to get that in place. So I fly out to California. Actually, before that, they wouldn't give me the cash up front, so I had to I filed Airrack and Associates because I thought it was funny.
This is why I think you're tapped, because most people stop there. They don't
Yeah,
put out a loan
yeah.
they don't create an LLC and take a loan out against their name.
Also, at this time, you have to take into account that I'm like worth negative $20,000 actually, because COVID had hit and it was an event-based business. So I was losing.
Oh, I know all about that.
Yeah. Losing tons of money on a company like that. So I'm like in debt. And then I opened Airrack and Associates as an LLC. I knew about SBA loans, where basically the government or banks and government are partnered to give you money at a really low interest rate. So I was like, worst case scenario, I'll take like a big loan out, low interest rate, pay it off over time. That's like my worst case scenario. So I get a loan for $17,500 from a bank. I cashed the entire thing out.
Wait, did the bank have
20s.
to? Did you have to say what you were doing? Did you say like?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I definitely
you
didn't say a couch.
You had to sit across from someone and say, "I'm going to buy a famous YouTuber's couch, and then I'm going to explode it." And
100% lied. Yeah, definitely didn't say the couch. It was like business operations. That was stupid. I just made up an excuse.
That's a good.
I wish it would have been a better
imports,
story
exports, just one of those catch-all things.
Yeah, just bullshitting the entire thing. They approved me. I don't know why. I've been working with the bank for a while, but they approved me for $17,500 loan. The next day, I cashed the entire thing out in 20s, put it all in a backpack, fly out that night to Los Angeles, wake up the next morning, and my stomach is like hurting because of the amount of risk I'm taking. I remember like not wanting to get out of bed, and it was just miserable.
Did it just hit you then?
Videos. Yeah. Like when you like wake up and your reality is that that's like 17,500 in cash that you don't have, and I'm about to go buy a couch with it that hopefully works out, and I only have like 80,000 subscribers.
Couch. And the
couch I don't want the couch.
No one wants the couch.
No, it's just a giant. I mean, where am I going to put it after I buy it? I have no clue. I literally have no clue what I'm doing. But yeah, go over to Logan's, buy the couch. It was a great video. And sort of the mentality behind that was, if I'm going to go do collaborations with these big YouTubers, it's going to help me grow. But the only way that that's going to happen is if I create sort of a situation where I'm creating content for them and genuinely positively benefiting them. And then it also creates content for me. So for Logan, I'm solving a very real world problem of him having these couches. Like if you go into his house now, he's done this whole like dugout, sit in ground type situation. It's really cool, but he needed the couches gone in the real world. And then me buying them was also great content for him. I like showed up to his house and just hand delivered him like premium content to his doorstep, you know? Yeah. And then once I had the couches, I didn't know what I would do. Called up Tanner Fox, who I'd never met before. He hit me up like one time in the DMs. He let me keep the couches at his warehouse. I flew back to Atlanta, got a game plan together, what we were going to do. First video pops off. And then we basically just made six more videos.
How nervous for that first video?
So
do you
nervous.
know it's good? Do you know it's good before you post it?
No. I thought it would get max like 100,000 views. And I was like really, really terrified. Like when you get that deep into the sauce, like you're that deep into the sauce and you have like, you've been looking at that video. Like I hadn't slept in like 3 days because I shot it, started edited through the plane flight home, got home, finished the video. The next morning, I'm like, been up for 72 hours. I have no idea if this video is good or not. The thumbnail still to this day is like ass, like it's terrible. And I'm just basically timing it up at that point with when Logan's going to post his video.
Right.
And then I have a CTA in that video that tells people to go to Logan's video, say subscribe to Airrack, so that people will start searching my name up and it'll get recommended alongside for like SEO purposes and all that. So by the grace of God, it freaking worked. The video gets a ton of views, and yeah, we rolled with it for the next month and a half and made a bunch of couch series video and grew like 200,000 subscribers in a month. And that was sort of the start to everything this year.
So that equation you just did, where the leverage equation, where you're solving a problem for Logan. Like for me, when we were first starting out, I didn't have any money. So we'd have influencers come to us and I'd pitch them and they'd say, yeah, you don't have nearly enough money. And I'd say, what if I can get you front row Drake tonight? So their rate was 5,000, 10,000. If I put you front row Drake, they'll do it because that's content for them, right? So it's kind of the same thing where I was trying to solve a problem for all of them where they need content for their channel. If your thumbnail or something says front row Drake or met Drake or feet on the floor at the Clippers game, that'll move the needle for people. So that kind of like registered with me in my world where a lot of times creators will come to me and if you become that brand that helps them finance these crazy ideas, you get put in a zone where you get some interesting opportunities.
That's actually really smart. That's really interesting. Do you still use that strategy? Because I feel like that's like an evergreen strategy.
I mean, yeah, it's an evergreen strategy. Dealing with YouTubers and where they want to sit is one of the toughest experiences. So like this story I had where Casey wanted to go to a fight and it was in Vegas and they needed tickets. They needed $50,000 worth of tickets. Maybe it was 100,000. It was so much tickets. And I was kind of like you where I'm fronting that money. So I don't, if I buy you tickets to an event, that money's out the door. So I've prepaid an influencer, which is a scary proposition.
Yeah.
And I'm underwriting your private jet from LA to Vegas. And I'm betting that this video is going to pay out. But this is an opportunity where I get to work with Casey. So I was like, all right, fuck it. I'm just going to go for it. But of course, they almost missed the fight. I had to get like a courier service to run to them to like meet them as just so they get in right before the door closes. They get in, they film the whole thing. It was a shit show. But I know that feeling of, one, I got a good deal relative for how many views I got. Two, my stomach's on the floor because I just put, probably close to 100 grand on the line on this video, and I haven't seen anything yet. For all I know,
scary, bro.
Casey he wouldn't, but he could just ghost me, Casey could not do the right call to action. He could not do this. And all those situations, when you're playing with leverage, just like you did it by taking out an SBA loan, doing this with Logan Paul, but you have great opportunity, but it's scary.
Super scary. It's way scarier for you when you have no control over the content. That, like, I don't know if I have the risk tolerance for that. That's crazy.
Well,
like you just trust that they're gonna make like phenomenal video.
Listen, I get review of the video, so that's fine as long as you give the videos. My fear is you take the tickets and then you never post. And I've had 2 creators who have ever done that to me. I won't put them on blast, but I've told them in person.
And so that was all through SeatGeek, right?
Right.
That's so interesting, man. I remember watching those videos of you sponsoring those videos and having conversations with my friends who understood YouTube. And we would literally, dude, I'm not even joking. We would simulate the talks. We were like, imagine the guy who's going to the board at SeatGeek and explaining like, all right, guys, listen to me for 1 second. Like, I had this idea. There's these guys on YouTube. They do this thing. We need to give them like $100,000. And if we give them $100,000, I promise it will pay off. And we would like, I remember literally having this conversation like 15 times with different people who understood YouTube of like how crazy that must have been to like pitch influencer marketing so early on. And with that level of like financial risk going into it. Was that like, how did you pitch that? I'm interested.
I mean, if you're a challenger brand, we can't just do what all our competitors are doing. We can't dump money on TV. We can't play that game.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, imagine a video where 10 million people are watching and the main character stops the scene. He says, "Hold up." He looks at the TV screen and he says, "Do this because I said so." And they help make this part of the video possible. I mean, that's not a TV commercial. That's almost like watching the Patriots and Tom Brady saying this next play is possible. You're somebody you care about. He's a main character. The power of that moment is hard to, I agree with you. It's hard to kind of pitch internally. I was able to do that, but it was also a situation where I knew in my heart that ad is so much more powerful than whatever you see on TV.
Crazy. I mean, that was OG influencer marketing, bro. Like that was like,
this isn't a podcast about Ian though. We got to
no. But I came on here because I wanted to ask you about this because I've been talking to my closest friends about that specific moment, and I'm just fascinated by like how does that happen? Because now we all take this for granted. I live here because people like you thought of that kind of stuff. All my roommates live here because people like you thought of that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to think. I mean, that was in 2017, 2018. You guys were doing that kind of stuff.
2016. I was the first big sponsor of Barstool. What do you think actually cuts through the clutter? Is a question that I always like ask myself. Like sometimes I'll be watching TV with my friends. We'll be watching a basketball game, and I'll say, "Close your eyes and tell me what brands are on the court." And no one can tell you. No one can tell you, but you can. If I said, "What's your favorite podcaster and what ad do they read a lot?" They'll remember that. And now the next level is when you can actually make the content better by sponsoring. So that's like the next level stuff. That's where your fans champion you because you helped their creator do something they otherwise couldn't do. So that brand that sponsored the Logan, we don't need to, shout them out. What brand was it?
Yeah, that was Current Card.
Current. I know Current really well. Current's great, but they heard your idea. They helped make something possible. And then your audience, I'm sure, recognize that this moment wouldn't have been possible without Current,
Totally, dude. And they got so much good like publicity. I remember there were tons of tweets of like, Current just made the smartest investment of all time. They paid this kid like probably like dog shit and got
shout out to Adam Haiti. Shout out to that whole Current crew. I know that.
No, they did great though. They made the whole thing possible, and like we made that very clear. So it was a great integration.
You understand leverage really well, particularly with other creators. How do you think about partnering with, like, using your audience? So shout out Airrack Mafia. How do you think about leveraging your audience?
That's a good question. I think that it's the same principle as the first one, but I think that the audience leverage, another word for like using leverage with an audience, I think, in my opinion, is building depth. So when you ask the audience to do something and then they do it, and then there's fruits to those labors, you're building depth with the audience and you're building trust with the audience, right? And when the audience sees like they go and do something, and then it's like that Steve Jobs quote where he talks about how like when you realize the world around you, when you push on something pops out the other end,
Right.
Like making the audience feel like when they push on something pops out the other end, and they have direct control over what happens in this YouTube channel that they're watching. In the next episode, if I do this thing, something else is going to happen, I think people seeing fruits of their labor is really, really powerful, and people having control over the channel is really powerful. Those are two things I really like to tap into. And I think that then, we can talk about brand stuff too. Like when you do that, you're also building trust and like, hey, I'm going to promote this thing, and it would really help me out if you go do this thing at that site, because we've already instilled that sort of, I ask you guys to do something, you help us do it, we make better videos in the future. You know what I mean?
I get that. But do you think of that concept before you do it, or is it just natural? Are you thinking behind the scenes, okay, if I approach Logan, I need to approach him in this way. To work with my audience, I need to establish a level of depth, because not only will that be good, but it also, you mentioned in another video, you want that audience retention. You want them to stick around their video. You want them invested in you. Like, do you think about those as like concepts and then you implement them, or it just comes naturally to you?
Yeah, it's definitely a good mix of the two. I think I've watched so much YouTube for my entire life that I intrinsically understand how it works and what I don't like and do like about creators, to the point where I'm not really thinking hard about a lot of the way that I'm communicating to the creator. But there are times I definitely think about it like logically. I think building the audience pieces comes very naturally to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then doing things like pushing those people in the right directions for like brand type stuff is something that I'm having to like do a better job at learning how to do well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let's go into the brand stuff. Doing that with brands, what do you mean?
One of the challenges is finding a way to draw a through line between a brand that feels somewhat unrelated to the video into they made X possible. Like that's something that I've had to do a better job at learning how to do well. And I think there's a couple creators who do it really well, but I think there's a lot of creators who do it really bad. So I'm trying to become a creator who does it really well.
I mean, it's a two-sided equation, because there's also brands who will come to a creator and say, we want our ad to look like this in this format. They didn't watch any of your videos. They have no clue how they're going to make it relational. And then let's say you actually go the extra mile and you find a way to embed that brand in your content. And then they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We gave you some very specific copy points. You didn't hit that. You didn't hit this. We're not okay with it. And that's on the brand. And there's a lot of brands who still do that because in their mind, some people view influencers similar to how they've use a Facebook or an Instagram ad, where it's
right.
I want full control. It has to look like this, because the more we hit on these things that we know works, it's going to work. The problem is they're not understanding that you have this connection with your audience that they have to tap into. And the minute they start telling you how to talk to your audience, you've immediately ruined the whole point of influencer marketing. Mm-hmm. The reason why we're paying higher CPMs for influencers is because you guys, you're on a per view basis, should outpunch everybody else. It is should be the best advertising. So I'm going to pay more for that than I'm going to pay for some banner ad that no one ever clicks on a website that no one ever goes to, that like bots watch. It's just two different things, but people bring that mindset to influencers. That's in them. I think on the creator side, they don't open the kimono enough, where I think audiences, there used to be this mindset amongst creators where I'm going to say, I'm going to slip this ad in, and you're almost not even going to know it's an ad. It's like, wow, I really love this new t-shirt. It's, from Buck Mason, and this isn't actually a Buck Mason t-shirt. I really like it. It's Buck Mason. It's so great. Use my promo code if you just happen to, and it's slipped in, and it's in this way where the audience feels like you're taking advantage of them. And that is bad. And I think the creators do it best, or like, they kind of open it up. It's like Airrack calling SeatGeek and being like, listen, I have this idea. Doesn't necessarily have to do with tickets, but, and then the audience kind of is in on it, where they suddenly are in on this sponsorship. They saw this behind the scenes look at something that is completely different. Like one of my favorite ads we've ever done, we worked with Cody Ko and Noel. We did a music video with them called Broke Bitch.
I remember this.
At the end of the video, they crash their car, and a SeatGeek salesman comes out of nowhere to help fix it. And they're like, aren't you guys just a ticketing company? He's like, oh, well, we do cars too. And then we were kind of playing to this joke, and then they do the ad read, and that ad read paid for the entire music video. And it was like a full circle, just like acknowledging how much of a meme SeatGeek had become, acknowledging that we're a car company, but we're not. I don't know.
Yes.
That's kind of how, that was my favorite ad I think I've ever done. I don't know why we didn't win any awards for that, but that's a whole separate discussion.
I don't know if there are any awards for that right now.
Dude, there are.
Are there?
We've never won an influencer award. It pisses me off to this day. I refuse to submit to any more competitions. But anyway, long story short is, I think creators can do a great job of bringing brands in a way where just acknowledging this is a sponsorship. I see what you're saying, particularly with your style content. We work with a lot of NBA creators. It's easy for them to pitch tickets. Mm-hmm. If you're going to sneak into the Super Bowl, I can't sponsor your video.
Exactly. Right. Which would be the only situation wherein your brand relates to anything that I'm doing.
Right. I mean, you can do the surprise. There's different ways, but I think trying to find ways where you acknowledge maybe that this doesn't make sense, but this brand is cool. And it's up to the
Yeah.
brand to understand that too.
Yeah. That's what I'm interested in doing. And I think there's something that I have learned over the last like 6 months of doing more and more brand work is in the beginning, I was playing a very selfish game of like, this is my video and I need my numbers and analytics to be like where they need to be. So we can have the brand in there, but it needs to be as short as possible. And we need to glide over it as smoothly as possible in order to keep my retention where it needs to be. And realizing you forfeit most brand things because what brands want is conversions. And then I'm like back to like business mind of like, oh yeah, that makes like perfect sense that they would want to make money off of money that they're spending, you know? So then it's like
Right.
you have to rework the entire thing. And now my focus is like, how do I become like a god tier brand guy? Like, how can I be? I want to go, if it's a 60-second integration, I'm going to go a minute 30, but it's my personal responsibility to keep my retention where it needs to be on a video, regardless of the brand, you know, because I need to do a better job at building those out. So, yeah, I think that there's a way to do a really good job at it, and I'm still learning that. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because there's some conversion based brands, some brand based brands, but the conversion ones are the ones that stick around and will sponsor your channel for a year versus the
Exactly.
brand ones are going to pop in, they're going to do some nice thing, and then are they going to stick around? Unclear.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, so the last thing I want to get into before my final very important question is like what's the end goal here? We touched on it earlier, but you're going to get 1 million subscribers, then you're going to get 5 million subscribers, then you're going to get, and then at what point is Eric satisfied?
Yeah, that's a
Or are
great
you just
question.
going to, are you going to wake up one morning, just like you woke up a morning, 4 years ago, and you're going to say, I'm tired of doing this shit?
Yeah, it's a good question. I just want to do YouTube, dude. I've always wanted to do YouTube. It's interesting that you say the commercial thing because as a kid, like you can ask my parents, they'd talk about how I would always just watch commercials and I would talk about commercials nonstop. And then once I figured out that YouTube was a thing, I would just talk about like YouTube nonstop. And like since my earliest memory, I've just wanted to make videos on the internet. That's my goal. I want to make videos on the internet. I want to build like a really strong audience that watches what I'm creating, which I think we're doing a great job at the moment. I want to keep doing that. And I want to make a lot of money doing it so that I can have enormous impact on planet Earth. Like that's the goal. How do we make a shitload of money doing something that I'm incredibly passionate about? If I make a shitload of money doing something I'm not passionate about, it doesn't count. Like it doesn't matter, you know. But if I'm able to like really do a good job at creating like generational wealth for myself and my family and use that to positively impact worth while I'm here, I think that that's like a really I think that's a really cool thing to work towards. And especially with an environment like YouTube where you can build as big as you want, I think having sort of a big North Star but ambiguous goal like that is kind of the way I like to roll, you know, because you really can't count on where it's going to end.
So how many subs are you going to have by the end of this year?
I said 5 million at the beginning of the year, which I think is cool. I'm probably going to dissolve that goal because I want to do the goal of 1 million is really cool. There's never going to be a subscriber goal that's going to feel the same to me or the audience than going from 0 to 1 million. It's just not going to happen. It's
Right.
like 0, like 1 to 5 is cool. 1 to 10 is cool. 1 to 100 million is really cool, but it's not as cool as 0 to 1 million, you know? So the goal for me really is like building depth with an audience. Like how do we really do a better job at building depth with an audience? So I think 5 million subscribers is really cool. I'm not going to be heartbroken if I don't do it. But if I get to the end of the year and my brand conversions are really high and my merch sales are really high and my ability to connect with my audience is the best it's ever been, I will be incredibly happy, you know?
Does any of that,
that's the goal.
Does that stuff always have to happen on YouTube, or do you think you can create depth off YouTube?
I think you can create depth off YouTube. That's a good question. I think you can create depth off of YouTube for sure.
But
I think it starts on your videos. I think I would like to. I want to get a really strong. I'm not one of these creators that thinks I know like exactly what I'm doing. I'm like figuring out as I'm going, and I want to be doing the best job. YouTube is what I care about. YouTube is what I want to be doing. I think it's important to build audiences on all these other platforms and stuff, which we're, sort of working towards doing. But I think it starts on your like North Star platform, and so for us, that's YouTube. So I want to do a really great job at that. And the rest I think will follow once we have that figured out.
When you say us, how big is that team?
I always say us. When I say us, I'm talking about myself and the community. My team specifically for the channel.
Yeah.
We've got 2 editors working downstairs. I've got a production assistant. So that's 4 of us on production side. And then I've got Zach and Kate. So 7 people right now.
And is that business profitable?
Yeah. It's profitable. It is profitable. I'm okay. I would be down with it not being profitable.
Well, I'm saying that's the thing. Like I could see you just running this shit at a loss. Next thing you know, you have like 4 SBA loans out and your credit cards are maxed and
once we right now I'm really in a season of building depth. Once we're really comfortable with that and we're cranking out a lot of videos like this last month, I definitely probably spent as much as I made because we produce a ton of videos. Last year, I actually looked at my books yesterday. I got back with my accountant and I think I made like $2,000 last year. I think I brought in like a few $100,000 and like spent all of it. And that was just, that just is what it is, but I'm so cool with that. That's totally fine.
Isn't it funny how like the best channels you see on YouTube run their businesses like a startup where everything they get, they try to pour back into the business where it's not this. And I feel like it's early on YouTube, it was a little bit of a different mindset where you weren't trying to constantly reinvest in the channel to a point where you had a objectively amazing year. You broke even and you're pumped about that because of what you built to get there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's super interesting. I think it is a startup. And like when I pitch people on working here, I very much communicate to them like, hey, this is a startup environment. The beginning salary is not going to be great. It's going to be really ridiculously hard. It almost doesn't make sense for you to like accept a job here because you're going to be working extremely hard and you're probably going to be miserable. And I know you're young and you say you want to work hard. It's like not going to be as fun to say in 3 months from now when you've been in a garage editing for 3 months straight for 60 hours a week, like just making videos over and over and over again. So just like I will pitch it like you're working at a startup, that's very much what it is.
If someone gets that pitch and then they're like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah.
You got to respect it.
100%. Yeah. And like our best hires have come off of people who really like die to that commitment,
All right. Last question. What would be something in the last year that you regret, you wish you did differently, something you failed at?
That's a good question. There's not a lot that I regret. There's a lot of bad decisions made. Something that I think was against all of my like rules and like suggestions for creators when they're growing audiences was I was shooting the Dan Bilzerian video. And so we were sneaking into Dan Bilzerian's party. We went there, we got kicked out the first time. And on the way back, we were near Logan's house. And I was like, oh, we'll just shoot over there and shoot like a pickup shot or something in front of his gate. We go over there, Logan's outside, and I decide I'm going to change into my like suit attire that I had previously like confronted him in. I get out of the car, I go talk to him. It looks like to him that I came just to like show up to his house. That one move took me 6 months of relationship building with Logan to like repair. I guess my word of advice would be like, once you start doing the YouTube influencer thing, there's a lot of like opportunities and things that come up that feel like cool and flashy. Basically, in my mind, I thought I'll never be big enough for this to matter. Like you'll upload certain videos or you'll do certain things where it feels like I will never be big enough for this to matter. I would just encourage people to really think deeply about why you're doing what you're doing and assume that you're going to be huge and that the repercussions of what you're doing are going to come back and haunt you,
Yeah. Like in that instance, what you did was totally not malicious, but there's a certain respect in the game of if I'm going to come to Logan, I'm gonna come legit like you did that first time. It's not gonna be a
Correct.
drive by, and it was a
Correct.
coincidence that sucks. But I totally get what you're saying. Where it would be, if I were to walk into a meeting, that's a very important meeting, and I just got thrown in at the last second, but I'm not prepared for that meeting. I'm actually, it's a disservice for me to be there just to, you know what I'm
Correct.
saying?
You're doing a disservice to the person who prepared the meeting and the people there by wasting everybody else's time.
Just
right?
so I can say I was sat in the room with somebody cool. Like that's
Exactly.
kind of how I think about it.
No, it's great. Yeah. Know when to sit in and know when to sit out. Like there's
when I'm
a
at
time and place.
I used to work at a sports agency and there'd be an athlete in the office, and it was always hard to not go up to the athlete and try to like dap him up and be like, yo, what's up, Andrew Luck? Big fan. But then you did it that one time, and it took me a year of recovering with my bosses being like, you will look like a fan. Like you are there's a reason why, like, you're an intern, you're wearing Dockers and a button down. You're already a loser. And then you had to just do that. Like you're never gonna, and then the athlete looks at you differently from then on out because you're just a fan, you're not a peer. Those kind of moments, totally get it, where you're like, it's not like I'm going to move up in this company enough where it's going to matter that I came up to Andrew Luck.
Yeah, you're burning a bridge, but you're saying like my forward momentum in this company doesn't look like, I'm going to use where I'm at right now as an opportunity to go meet this guy so that I can say that I did, because the company matters less than my own personal selfish ambition. Right. And it's like, if you think about what you're doing as like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to like, there's a world where I'm the CEO of this company in like 10 years, but doing this one thing is going to, I mean, you just have to think about the long game. Think about the long game. Like, I think that's what it is.
You're a good talker.
Sure. I love that. Thank you for the compliment.
Things concisely. Well, that was the episode. Great conversation. And I'm genuinely, and I don't say this, I'm inspired by how much drive you're bringing to what you're doing, because it's just really cool to see someone just attack it the way you have.
Yeah, back at you, bro. I'm pumped to be partnered up. We're doing Lolly together, so I'm pumped to be doing that.
We're investors together now.
That'll be great.
Are we working together at Stir? Are you part of Stir?
Yeah.
So I'm working.
I didn't know you were part of Stir.
Yep.
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. So,
well, your Lolly ad was money.
Let's go. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. That was the first one where I was like going in on it and like really.
I heard that because I was on the opposite side where I was working with Alex, and I saw, like, I'm on the company Slack, and I saw the kind of the back and forth as the lot, and I Slacked my coworker. I was like, oh, that's good shit. Like,
that's good stuff. It means more coming from you, bro. I appreciate that.
But you set expectations too high. Now I'm thinking they're not going to get other creators. Finding other creators who do an ad like that is going to be tough. But that is the best ad to send to other creators, to say, do shit like this. Because that's what you want. You want that email to say, this is what, a good one is. But
yeah.
Anyway,
that's
thanks,
sick,
man.
That's awesome. Of course, bro. Great to meet you. Excited to do some more stuff, and best of luck with the podcast. I'll be listening.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Cool.
Peace.
Thanks, bro. Peace.
All right, everyone. That is the episode. As you could probably tell, I really, really enjoyed that one. I think Eric is just an incredibly driven individual. And when you layer that on top of all the different concepts he's applying, this idea of leverage, this idea of how he uses his audience to build his video ideas, he is just such a next level content creator that I don't think it's crazy to think a year from now he's going to have 5 million subs and he's going to become one of the largest content creators on the platform. If you wouldn't mind rating and reviewing, I read every single review. 5 stars is the top review I've heard. So if you want to give 5 stars, you could literally be the best. So if you want to give me 5 stars, great. If you're on Spotify, smash the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, like, do all the things. I'm really trying to make this happen. So anything you can do there is super, super helpful. Thanks again. See you next week.